Alright, what's up everyone? Today we're talking about gain staging. So what is gain? The word gain is typically used interchangeably with the word volume, but there are some important distinctions between the two that are worth covering. Volume more generally relates to the output side of your signal flow. It's literally the level you're going to be listening at the very end of all your processing, and legitimately just has to do with volume. Gain, on the other hand, is directly related to the input side of your signal flow and has a much bigger effect on the tone of what you're actually listening to. So gain staging is the concept of essentially everywhere that you have an opportunity to affect the gain of your signal, you want to be setting that up in a way that gives you a good tone, doesn't give you distortion, and isn't too weak of a signal. It's important because too much or too little gain in your signal flow will really mess up the tone of whatever you're trying to do. And the goal of live music and recording is just getting that signal through as cleanly as possible. When all that's done, the goal is for the listener to be able to change the volume without affecting the tone of the signal. So a really basic example of gain staging, and something that a lot of people will run into in real life, is the scenario where you have a mobile device like a cell phone and a mobile speaker. Mobile speakers are becoming hugely popular. I even have one myself. Look at that. In this scenario, you only have the two devices. So it's rather simple, but you can still do it well and do it not well. An example of doing it well would be to have your cell phone volume somewhere around 75 to 85%. That's just to make sure that you're not maxing out your cell phone, because there is such a thing as digital clipping that could be happening. Safe to say somewhere around 75 to 85 is a good place for your cell phone to be. It's important as well to check the application you're using to listen to music to see if there is a gain stage there. That would be like if I'm using iTunes on my computer to send music to the mobile speaker, there is a volume fader on iTunes that is a gain stage. That again, you'd want to set somewhere around 75 to 85%. Again, you don't want to be at 100 because that could be digital clipping. The reason why you might want to start on the lower side is because you can give yourself a little bit of what we call headroom. Headroom is the idea of just giving yourself a little more space to breathe comfortably without affecting the tone. Once you have those things set, if you've set it up correctly, you can now play your music through your mobile speaker and change the volume there without affecting the tone of the song that you're listening to. That is to make sure it's not too thin, way too quiet, or distorted by being pushed way too hard on the first two gain stages. This concept was introduced to me through recording, which is where it's incredibly important to do correct gain staging. When you're recording, typically you'll have more gain stages to consider because there's just more of them in your signal flow. Anywhere from your microphone preamp, that's a gain stage. The digital processors you're using have gain stages, and then eventually, when you do output that, you'll have volume control. But in order to do that right, you want to make sure you've set all those gains correctly. When I was in college, I was fortunate enough to sit in on a recording session with the legendary George Massenburg, recording engineer and the inventor of the parametric EQ. Super smart guy, amazing, intelligent person. And he left us with a piece of advice where he said, you always want to fill your bit bucket. And so that's the idea of, on a digital scale, if you're looking at it from green to red, turn your mic preamps up until they're obviously healthy without distorting, and filling all that green, those bits of your bit bucket. You can dip a little bit into the yellow, that's okay, that's all good. Maybe occasionally hitting red, but you do want to avoid the red. That's going to be digital clipping for the most part. Tons of debates about this kind of thing, but never a bad idea to stay away from the red on your digital mixers. This concept is so incredibly important for DJs especially, mostly because I see a lot of them getting it wrong, unfortunately. In the scenario of DJing, you have typically a lot of gain stages on your DJ equipment, and honestly, it's a lot of ways for you to mess up the way your songs sound. It starts first with actually getting good quality songs, right? That's why we don't rip songs from YouTube, is because they could be the wrong levels or just for all sorts of reasons done wrong. So you want to ensure you have good quality sound by getting good quality files. That's where you start. Secondly, in your DJ software, there's typically a way for you to affect the gain there as well. I'm a Serato user myself, and every time you load a track in Serato, you have the option to actually change the volume, regardless of even if you have any equipment plugged in. That's a gain stage. You want to make sure that that's at a healthy level so that you can then move that, send that into your mixer. Once you go into your DJ mixer, you'll typically have a gain knob at the top of each channel, sometimes also called trim. It's another pretty synonymous word for gain. Again, you want to bring that up to a healthy level before it hits that fader that you're actually using to control the channel itself. The fader itself is also a gain stage, although typically it just goes like, if you're for me, you use it to blend different songs and then you bring it up to that 100% level where you know, because you've done your gain staging right, that it's going to be clean and good. Finally, on your DJ mixer, you have your master output gain, which is the one that most typically gets abused, and it's either because the gain staging before it isn't done correctly, or because DJs are just trying to get way more volume out of their gear, but if you're pushing the master, you're pushing it in the wrong place for volume. Typically what you want to do is you want to work with the mix engineer at the venue or whoever is handling the live sound. If you're doing this on your own, it's just the speaker volume of your speakers. But you want to make sure you're working in collaboration with whoever does have the actual end of the signal flow to make sure that you're not sending them too much signal, because you just end up in a battle with them all event long. I was going to say night because I work during the night. You don't want to be in a battle with your sound guy because it's not a good way to get called back, and it's just not a good way to sound good. You want to make sure you sound good. So if anything, talk to your sound guy. If you want more volume, you can ask for the most part. A famous anecdote with DJs that I have to throw in is a joke that I always use with my buddies, which is that if you ain't redlining, you ain't headlining. We've all seen DJs that just slam the master until it's red as hell, super distorted. Somehow they can't tell, but they're just fighting the sound guy, like I was saying. You don't want to do that. Make sure you've done your gain staging correctly. I'm going to include a short video of Travis Scott the rapper doing a DJ set at a venue here in Boston called The Grand. And he obviously wanted more volume out of what he was playing, so he's turning his master way up to get more volume out of the house, and they send the resident DJ at the club to go sneak it back down, and they caught on video what happened next.
You can't touch this. Touch this.
Obviously pretty funny, but don't let that be you guys. Travis Scott has enough clout that he's going to be fine no matter what happens, but that's a really good way to get yourself kicked out of a club if you're not already a famous person, so just don't do it. So to summarize, gain is input level going into your signal flow. It affects the tone of the signal that you're putting through it, and if you've done gain staging correctly, you can change the volume at the end of your signal flow and you should be getting the same sound, the same tone, no matter what. So thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.